You ever had someone walk right up to your front door, look you square in the eye, and demand something so wild, so downright insane, that you just stand there, blinking, waiting for them to crack a smile and say they're joking? Yeah, that was me, frozen on the creaky porch of my family's old lake house, staring at Karen Whitmore, the self-appointed queen of the Pine Hollow Homeowners Association, as she handed me a letter demanding I tear down my home, my sanctuary, within 30 days. Drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from, because trust me, this story's gonna take you on a ride you won't believe, even though I lived every second of it. My name's Ethan Carter, a structural engineer by trade, a guy who likes solving problems, whether it's a shaky bridge or a tricky equation. But this wasn't a problem I saw coming. That lake house, tucked on a quiet spit of land jutting into Silver Mist Lake, wasn't just some weekend getaway. It was my heart, my history. My granddad, Henry Carter, built it back in the 50s with his own hands. Every log hewn from the pines, he felled himself. He was a land surveyor, a man who could read the earth like a book, and that house was his love letter to it. Growing up, I spent every summer there, learning to cast a line, watching fireflies dance, listening to Granddad's stories under a sky so clear it felt like you could touch the stars. When he passed, that place became my refuge, a spot to escape the noise of the city, to think, to breathe. I kept it pristine. New roof, fresh stain, windows so clean they sparkled. It wasn't fancy, but it was solid, soulful, the kind of place that felt alive with memories. Across the lake, about a decade ago, Pine Hollow sprang up, a cluster of McMansions, all identical, with manicured lawns and SUVs shinier than a showroom floor. I didn't pay them much mind. My land was separate, a half-mile of water and a thick wall of evergreens between us. I figured we'd coexist. Them with their wine tastings, me with my fishing pole. Then came the flyer, slapped on my mailbox like a bad omen, announcing the Pine Hollow HOA and a list of community standards that read like they were written for a gated suburb, not a lakeside hamlet. I chuckled, tossed it in the trash. My land wasn't part of their deal. Or so I thought. A week later, Karen Whitmore rolled up my gravel drive in a gleaming black Lexus, kicking up dust like she owned the place. She stepped out, all designer athleisure and a smile that didn't reach her eyes, her blonde bob so perfect it looked like it was glued on. "Mr. Carter," she said, not asking, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "I'm Karen Whitmore, president of the Pine Hollow Homeowners Association." She paused, expecting me to bow or something. I just leaned against the porch rail, wiping motor oil off my hands from fixing the well pump, and said, "All right, what's this about?" She didn't waste time. "Your structure," she said, flicking her hand at my house like it was a pile of junk, "is an eyesore, and it's blocking the community's lake access. We have plans for a dock, a recreation area. Your house is in the way. It's not up to code, unpermitted, and frankly, it's dragging down our property values." I felt my jaw tighten. An eyesore? My granddad's house? The one he built to code. With permits he filed himself as a licensed surveyor? I kept my cool, barely. "Karen, this land's been in my family since before your neighborhood existed. There's no access easement here. Public launch is a mile down the road. You're on private property." She sighed, all theatrical, like I was a kid who didn't get it. "Mr. Carter, Pine Hollow is an exclusive community. The previous owner had an informal agreement for access. Your house doesn't meet our standards, and our lawyers have confirmed an easement exists. You have 30 days to demolish it, or we'll do it for you and bill you for it, plus fines." She handed me a letter, crisp and official-looking, signed by her and 2 other HOA board members. Probably her lapdogs. I took it, my hand steady, but my blood boiling. Informal agreement? My granddad didn't do informal anything. This woman was either clueless or lying. And I was betting on both. "You're making a mistake, Karen," I said, folding the letter slow, locking eyes with her. "This house isn't going anywhere." She smirked, that smug, I always win look. "I doubt that, Mr. Carter. Our lawyers are very good. 30 days. She spun on her heel, her Lexus roaring off, leaving a cloud of dust and a challenge I wasn't about to ignore. That night, I sat at Granddad's old oak desk, a pot of black coffee steaming beside me, and dug into his files. The man was a legend. Every deed, survey, permit, even letters, filed like a library. I found the deed to my land, clear as day, No easements, no HOAs, just my family's name on every inch of that peninsula. But as I pored over his surveys, something caught my eye, a note referencing a larger parcel, Tract C, Silver Mist Holdings, with a file number. My gut said there was more to this, so I kept digging, pulling out a dusty folder that smelled like old paper and pipe smoke. Inside was a bombshell, a 99-year lease from 1926, signed by my great-grandfather, leasing a huge chunk of land to a now-defunct lumber company. I cross-checked the boundaries on my laptop's county GIS map, and my jaw hit the floor. That land? It was Pine Hollow, every house, every road, every blade of grass Karen Whitmore thought she controlled. The lease had expired 2 years ago, in 2023, and no one had renewed it. The developer who built Pine Hollow went bankrupt, and the HOA just assumed they owned the land outright. They didn't. I did. Karen wasn't just trying to bully me off my own property, she was squatting on mine. The next week was a blur. I called my family's lawyer, Tom Hargrove, a grizzled guy who'd handled Granddad's estate. When I faxed him the lease and surveys, he let out a long whistle. "Ethan, you're sitting on a gold mine. This lease is airtight, and those folks in Pine Hollow, they're trespassers." Karen's picked a fight with a grizzly bear. He told me to document everything, every letter, every move the HOA made. And they didn't disappoint. Karen sent violation notices for nonsense, my unapproved cedar stain, my unkempt wildflower meadow. Someone dumped trash by my gate. Then nails showed up on my driveway. Twice. I set up security cameras, caught a black SUV, looked a lot like Karen's, idling nearby the night before the second batch appeared. Petty, but I was ready. Then came the tree guy, a nervous kid hired by the HOA to clear hazardous branches from my granddad's maples, the one shading my porch. I showed him my survey markers, told him cutting anything would be vandalism. And he bolted, apologizing like he'd dodged a bullet. Karen was escalating, trying to wear me down, but she was digging her own grave. Tom ran a title search, clean as a whistle. My family's trust owned Tract C, no question. The lease's reversion clause was clear. When it expired, the land and all permanent improvements, houses, roads, everything, went back to us. Pine Hollow was mine, and Karen didn't have a clue. We decided to hit them where it hurt. Their next HOA meeting, an emergency session to discuss my non-compliant house. Set 2 days before Karen's 30-day deadline. She thought she was about to win. I was about to ruin her day. Tom and I walked into the Pine Hollow clubhouse, a tacky beige building packed with 60 or so homeowners, all buzzing with gossip. Karen was at the podium, in her element, preaching about my dilapidated shack and her good faith efforts to fix it. She didn't see us until Tom cleared his throat, loud enough to stop her mid-sentence. "Excuse me, Madam President," he said, smooth as whiskey. "Mind if we set the record straight?" The room went quiet. Karen's face froze, her eyes darting between me and Tom like she'd seen a ghost. Who are you?" "This is a private meeting," she snapped. Tom stepped forward, briefcase in hand. "Tom Hargrove, counsel for Ethan Carter, the man you're slandering. He's got a right to speak when you're threatening his home." Karen sputtered, "Security." But the two guys in polo shirts just shrugged, clueless. I stepped up, keeping my voice calm but firm. "No need to get dramatic, Karen. I'm just here to share some news that affects everyone in this room, news you should have checked before you started this war." I nodded to Tom, who unrolled a giant survey map. My great-grandfather's original, overlaid with Pine Hollow's plat. "This," Tom said, holding it high, "is the land you're all living on. And this," he pulled out the 1926 lease, "is a 99-year lease that expired in 2023. The lessor? Ethan's great-grandfather. The land? Yours, technically, but only because Ethan's family owns it." The room exploded, shouts, gasps, panic. Karen went pale, her mouth flapping like a fish out of water. "This is absurd. We have deeds," someone yelled. Tom didn't flinch. "You have deeds to your houses, sure, but the land? That's Ethan's. The developer leased it, went bankrupt, and the lease ran out. You're all trespassing." I took over, laying out Karen's campaign, the fake easement, the violation notices, the nails, the tree stunt. Even her claim of a court order that didn't exist. Tom projected my photos, trash, nails, her SUV on my cameras. The crowd turned, murmurs becoming shouts. "You said his house was illegal," one guy roared. You told us he was the problem, a woman cried. Karen tried to rally. This is a trick. He's lying. But her voice cracked, and the room wasn't hers anymore. I held up my stack of documents. No trick, Karen. Just facts. You tried to steal my home, my granddad's legacy, for your little dock. And you didn't even know you're all living on my land. I let that sink in, then laid out the deal. My lawyers got packets for all of you. Proof of my ownership, the lease, everything. You've got 2 weeks to dissolve this HOA, fire Karen and her board, and negotiate new leases or buy your lots from me, fair and square. Or I start eviction proceedings. Your call. We left them in chaos, Karen's empire crumbling as homeowners tore into her. Within days, she and her board resigned, her SUV packed up and gone. A new committee reached out, apologetic, ready to talk. We worked out fair deals, most bought their lots, some leased. All with no HOA nonsense. My lake house stood untouched, its porch view sweeter than ever, not because the lake changed, but because the air was clear, the fight won. Looking back, it's wild to think one woman's ego turned me into the landlord of a whole neighborhood. Karen thought she could bully me, thought I was just some guy with a fishing pole. She didn't know I was Henry Carter's grandson, armed with his records, his foresight, his love for that land. She learned the hard way. Never demand someone tear down their home without checking who owns the ground you're standing on. So what do you think? Was I too harsh, or did Karen get what she deserved? Ever dealt with an HOA horror show or a bully who underestimated you? Drop your stories in the comments. I'm reading every one. Hit that like button if you're glad my lake house is still standing. And subscribe for more tales of standing up to the Karens of the world. Thanks for listening.